as important as Trump's fascism is, and is the lead story every day, his cozying up to dictators, his obsession with Hitler that has now come out, what he has said about our veterans, and what he wants to do with the military against his political adversaries. It's all huge news. This is the future that we're looking at in the next Trump term, if there is one. But this is what voters know right now, that he is killing us. I'm talking about us women.
My, how the rhetoric has changed. It is amazing. It is absolutely amazing how disappearing influence and crashing ratings can completely change the attitude of a cable news network. The beautiful plastic face and Urkel sounding voice that you just heard, that was the voice of Mika Bazooka, Mike Scarborough, Mika Brzezinski. Hell, who cares? It doesn't matter what her name is. The rhetoric coming from that painful voice, it was coming from the female host of The Morning John on MSNBC. Now, ironically enough, she is married to the primary flusher on The Morning John, John Scarborough, who shares something in common with the pretending Yenta on The View, Alyssa the Farrah Griffin. Johnny Scar is MSNBC's version of the Great Pretender, because just like the pretending Yenta, Joe Scarborough is a pretend Republican. Like I have been telling you guys since the election. Hell, like I have been telling you guys for months now, the mainstream media is shook. The media's in a full-blown panic. I cannot think of another time where I have seen the mainstream media this scared. One of the main takeaways that the media is taking away from the election, the media's come to the harsh realization that their cover is blown. Now, I don't know why it took the results of the election for the media to come to this realization. Uncle KC has been telling the media that their cover has been blown for the last 3 years now. Trust in the mainstream media, it has been at record lows for a while now, but the media, they didn't care, or they pretended not to know, because it wasn't impacting them where it mattered most. The ratings. Well, Casey, that's not true. CNN's ratings have been in the pooper for the last few years. Yeah, but CNN's been too dumb to realize why no one is watching their network. MSNBC, on the other hand, they have not been negatively impacted by their lies and propaganda until recently. During Trump's first term, Rachel Maddow and MSNBC, they were busted pushing the illusion of Russian collusion. Didn't matter. Rachel Maddow was still one of the top performers in cable news, where she was easily indoctrinating over 2 million people per episode. The Wicked Weave, Joy Reid. Now, even though she's wicked, even though she is only eclipsed on the ladder of evil by Keith Olbermann, Katie Pooh! No matter how vile Joy Reid had become, over 1 million people still tuned in every night in prime time to watch Joy ride her broom. For years, MSNBC has gotten away with pushing lies and propaganda because there were no consequences. The audience was a huge embarrassing failure when it came to holding MSNBC accountable, which is why Mika Bazooka felt comfortable referring to the Trumper as a fascist. It's why everyone at MSNBC felt justified referring to the Trumper as the modern-day Adolf. Remember during his first term when the most dangerous rhetoric they used against the Trumper was "Orange Man bad"? You guys remember that? During this past election, 2024, the symptoms of stage 4 OMB in the mainstream media got so bad, they were trying to convince their audience that Donnie was possessed by Adolf. And he was building these special summer camps where he would torture people in the media. Now, obviously, it was complete bullshit, but at the time, MSNBC could get away with it because the audience wasn't holding them accountable. But now, MSNBC is being held accountable for their transgressions. Millions of people have realized that MSNBC has been lying to them. And as a result, millions of people have quit watching this polished turd, which might be the reason that Mika Bazooka and John Scarborough flew down to Mar-a-Lago this weekend to beg Donald Trump's forgiveness. If you haven't already, make sure to like and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter at KC_BTL84. Link to the second channel in the description below. Earlier this morning on the second channel, we talked about Adam Silver fining LaMelo Ball $100,000 over words, feelings. So if you haven't already, head over to the second channel and check it out. This morning on MSNBC, Johnny Scar and his bazooka, they explained to the half dozen people watching why they spent their weekend at Mar-a-Lago. I heard that rapper guy P. Diddle was gonna be there. I wanted to get his autograph. All kidding aside, Mika and Johnny, they were explaining to their audience that they wanted to reopen the lines of communication between MSNBC and the Trumper. They explained that it's been 7 years since they have been in the presence of the Great Orange Hope, and it's been 4 years since they have spoken to the Trumper. While I was watching this segment, I got the feeling that Mika and John were uncomfortable explaining themselves. As you're about to see, it feels like they are trying to justify their decision to their audience, which is strange because their audience no longer exists. But I got the sense that they were expecting to get some resistance. They were expecting people to be mad that they had the audacity to meet with Donald Trump, which is exactly what happened. Keith Olbermann expressed his fake outrage after his former colleagues met with the Trumper. But Keithy, he was claiming that he was mad about the meeting, but I think Keithy is just jealous that they still collect woke welfare from MSNBC while he is not allowed within 500 feet of the building. This fake outrage is also strange because isn't that their job? Since when did it become unacceptable for someone in the media to speak with a president? It's literally their job to speak with politicians and share that news with their audience, their viewers. I don't know, to me it just felt like Mika and John were extremely uncomfortable explaining their reasoning for meeting with the Trumper. Watch it for yourself.
Now, we talked about a lot of issues, including abortion, mass deportation, threats of political retribution against political opponents, and media outlets. We talked about that a good bit. And it's going to come as no surprise to anybody who watches this show, has watched it over the past year or over the past decade, that we didn't see eye to eye on a lot of issues, and we told him so.
What we did agree on was to restart communications. In this meeting, President Trump was cheerful, he was upbeat, he seemed interested in finding common ground with Democrats on some of the most divisive issues. And for those asking why we would go speak to the president-elect during such fraught times, especially between us, I guess I would ask back, why wouldn't we?
As you can see, the line damn sure hasn't changed at MSNBC. You just heard Mika Bazooka claim, our reason for meeting with the president was to reopen the lines of communication. We want to become pen pals. We want to be phone friends. We want to be besties. While that might be true, I'm just having a very hard time biting into the shit sandwich that they're serving. Me personally, I think there are two reasons that Mika and Joe are begging the Trumpers' forgiveness. And not only are they begging his forgiveness privately, they're doing it publicly. But reason number one, MSNBC's ratings are in the pooper. MSNBC is on the precipice of competing with the Cemetery News Network. They are getting dangerously close to competing with CNN and News Nation, home of Chris Cuomo. Hey, it's me, Chrissy C. Now, obviously, this is causing extreme panic at the network. During prime time, MSNBC is dead last in the 18 to 49 demo. And yes, that means that CNN is beating them in that demo, which was unfathomable 4 weeks ago. MSNBC can't convince 75,000 people between the ages of 18 and 49 to watch their nightly turds in prime time. During the weekend, it's even worse. It's less than 30,000. I guess there is some doofus named Eamon that hosts a weekend dump in prime time at MSNBC. His ratings in the demo were so low, Nielsen couldn't measure them. Anytime there is a decline this drastic, there is going to be changes. This is my biggest problem with the Pelicans, and it's the reason that I quit following the team. Every season, it was the same exact problems, the same mistakes happening over and over, and there was never anyone solving the problem. Now, to their credit, seems like MSNBC is doing something about their declining ratings, or at least trying to. They are begging the Trumpers forgiveness, and they are seemingly trying to appeal to his supporters. Problem is, that is not going to work. And the reason it's not going to work is because no one trusts the voices on your network, which leads me to reason number 2 that Joe and Mika are apologizing to the Trumper. Uncle Casey thinks they're afraid of getting fired. They're afraid of losing their jobs. Remember over the summer when there was an attack on the Trumper in Pennsylvania? The attack happened on a Saturday afternoon in July. Now, guess who was not covering the story on MSNBC the following Monday morning? Just take a wild guess. The bazooka and the scar. Executives at MSNBC, they decided to put replacement propagandist in their time slot because they were afraid that Mika and Joe would say something incendiary. Last week, I told you guys that CNN is preparing to clean house. If you enjoy the anonymous faces that you see on CNN right now, you better be recording them, because the only place you're going to be seeing them soon is on the side of a milk carton. Now, I have not heard anything about MSNBC doing the same thing, but if ratings continue this steep decline, wouldn't they have to? If MSNBC continues to lose half their audience, wouldn't they have to do something about it? To be perfectly honest with you, I was surprised that the Trumper agreed to meet with Mika Bazooka and Joe Scar. I don't know if I should give him credit or question his judgment. On one hand, I can kinda understand it. Ever since he was attacked, it seems like the Trumper has a new appreciation for the Lord. I mean, who wouldn't? One of the foundations of Christianity, forgiveness, turning the other cheek. If someone calls you Adolf, you turn the other cheek so they can call you Mussolini. Maybe the Trumper is willing to forgive MSNBC, hoping that this act of kindness, along with their tanking ratings, will cause them to change. Maybe it will cause MSNBC to provide honest news coverage. The problem, though, that I have with that approach, it requires some level of trust in the media. It requires a belief that the media is capable of changing. Call me a skeptic, but I just don't believe it can happen, which is why I believe if MSNBC has any hopes of survival, if MSNBC has any chance of turning things around, they have got to fire everyone involved and bring in new voices. But anyway, give me your thoughts on this. Mika and Joe go from referring to the Trumper as Adolf to suddenly wanting to become besties. Why the sudden shift? Why is MSNBC suddenly reaching out to the Trumper? Is it their declining ratings? Are they panicking? Or do you think this was a legitimate attempt from MSNBC to reopen the lines of communication, as they said? You tell me. Sound off in the comments below. Best way to contact me is through email, btlkc84@gmail.com. I'll see you guys tomorrow.